I'd like to introduce some study resources on Eric Bissell's website. The Red Dictionary is a great resource for learning the meanings of the Hebrew words that are used in Scripture. Ernest Klein did a 10-year work. He was a rabbi himself, as well as the son of a rabbi. So he studied Hebrew, Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. Each section in the dictionary is organized by letter of the Aleph-Bet in alphabetical order. At the very beginning of this dictionary, there's a list of helpful abbreviations. Words in this dictionary are identified by usage, just like adjectives, prepositions, adverbs, verbs themselves, and there are square brackets used in the definitions to indicate etymological information. So all of this helpful information is at the very beginning of the dictionary. When I first began using this dictionary and learning the Paleo Hebrew, it was very helpful to have something that had the modern script on it as well as the Paleo script, and then the name of the letter, because I just was not familiar with Hebrew at all. So I made myself study cards, and this is a resource available on Eric Bissell's website that would be just as helpful. Just start getting familiar with the letters, writing the letters yourself, as well as the alphabetic order. Why is Hebrew important? Zephaniah 3:9 tells us, "For then I, Yahweh Almighty, King and Creator, will restore to the peoples a pure language that they all may call on the name of Yahweh to serve him with one accord." He himself promises to restore a pure language. And the amazing thing about Zephaniah 3 verses 8 and 9 is that it contains all 22 of the Hebrew letters, as well as the 5 final Sefit letters. So this graphic is available on Eric Bissell's website, and in the white band it shows the Paleo letters Aleph through Tav, and it goes right to left just as Hebrew goes. And above that is the modern script, and then above that are those 5 final Sefit letters. So that means they look different when they are used at the end of a word. At the bottom of this graphic, we have the Mishkan pattern. Paleo is an amazing pictographic language that shows a story. So it can be key to this Mishkan pattern, the 7 days of creation, as well as the Beatitudes. Psalms 119 is an amazing example of scripture that follows the alphabetic order in the verses. So each stanza, King David wrote this in an amazing way. Each stanza begins with an alphabet letter, and each stanza at that beginning word and every line uses that same letter. And then in alphabetic order, it goes along. For each letter has its own stanza, and some Bibles show that, but what an amazing find. So we're going to look at verse 18 in Psalms 118, and if you turn to page 507, if you do have a red dictionary, verse 18 reads, "Uncover my eyes, and I shall look at hidden things from your Torah." In many versions it says marvelous things or wondrous things. So I have the Hebrew on the right side, and if we look at that second line, the second word, that's the word for hidden or marvelous. So it is Nun Pei Lamed Aleph Wa Tav. Now, an amazing thing about Hebrew is we can look at the root of a word by dropping off the suffixes and the prefixes. And in this word, we have a prefix of Nun. So if we drop that off, and we have a suffix of Wa Tav. If we drop that off, we have a root word here of Pei Lamed Aleph. Is Pela or Paleo. When I don't know how to spell a Hebrew word specifically, I have to use Blue Letter Bible, and it's a great resource to look at a specific word and find the spelling. You could have the Strong's definition here as well. So here I wrote it in the Paleo script, Pei Lamed Aleph. And what I see in this letter just gleaning from reading the section in the dictionary or looking at Eric's chart. Pe is to deal with words, language, sounds that you make, anything to do with the mouth. Lamed has to do with teaching and learning or instructions. Aleph, the plan of the creator. And that's just a simple look at those letters. In the dictionary, we have Pe Lamed Aleph in the modern script, and it's defined as wonder, marvel. So think of that paleo, to be extraordinary, be difficult, to be wonderful, was extraordinary, was difficult, was wonderful, was marvelous. He showed himself marvelous, is used in Job 10, verse 16. He wondered, was amazed, he made wonderful, acted wonderfully, he caused to marvel, amazed, appeared wonderful, was extraordinary. And then we're also given derivative spellings. And if we went and looked up each one of these spellings, we would glean very similar information. And that's how Hebrew works. In the dictionary, each letter has its own section. And that first paragraph gives you some great information, whether it's pronunciation or some background knowledge or maybe a short definition. And we're going to look at Aleph-Bet. At the bottom there, it's kind of small, so I think I have a bigger, yep, here we go. This two-letter Hebrew word, very simple, can mean father, forefather, patriarch, ancestor, progenitor, head of a family, leader, chief, god, master, teacher, important, great, parent, male, so a father, and it keeps going on. So my absolute sympathy is with the Bible translators who are told to use one word of English for one word of Hebrew, where you can see this tiny two-letter word in Hebrew can mean so very much. So if you turn to page 189, we'll look at another section for a different letter. And this is the Vav, or Wa. Now, I've always called this letter a Vav before. That's a very common name for this letter. But in the dictionary, it's defined as a Wa. And it's given the meaning hook or peg. And that is a very basic meaning of this letter. And when I apply that Wa letter to Yah's name, his four-letter tetragrammaton, here I have Yod He, Wah He, and this is why I use Yahweh just as a simple pronunciation of the letters in his name. Here's a wonderful resource available on Eric's website, and it is the scriptures in the Paleo font. You can see the Aleph Tav is written in the purple color, and all the other letters are in red. And you also have a great space underneath it. So you could start using your dictionary and seeing the depth of meaning that we've missed out on. This chart is available on Eric Bissell's website, and it's a great resource. It gives you each letter as defined by the perspective of every other letter. So here I have the Aleph, and defined by the Aleph perspective, we could say it is plan, purpose, one. We could use architect, prototype, and there's so many words that Aleph could mean. Aleph at the Bet position could be steadfast or ox. Aleph from the Gimel perspective, between, preference for relationship. Aleph for the Dalet perspective, begin, a starting place. So it would go on and on and on, and you can just read down each column and gather the idea that Aleph can stand for. And each letter is the same way. There's so much information on this chart. The same way as with the dictionary, you can read through the Aleph section in the dictionary, and as those words develop and definitions are on that page, you'll see a circular pattern in Hebrew where you come to maybe a similar definition for a word. And just reading the whole section on Aleph, you would glean an idea of what Aleph stands for. So when I'm studying Torah, I have to ask myself some questions. What did he say? What does it specifically exactly mean? What do I do with it? Do I have any adjustments to make? So let's use the dictionary and find some interesting treasure. If you turn to page 598, we're going to look at the middle of the left column. I have Kuf, Shin, Tet. So Kuf I see as a raised up, exalted, following closely after. You could think of the pillar of cloud that appeared to the Israelites as Yah's presence in the wilderness. Shin I see as the dispensing of benefits if you are obedient. And Tet, sealed in the covenant, very exact, very official. And here I typed out the word, so Hebrew works right to left, and I capitalized the first letter just to remind myself that's where I start. So Kuf, Shin, Tet. And in the dictionary, it's defined as to make straight, to arrange, to adorn, decorate, ornament, embellish, to succeed, truth, was happy, was esteemed, to be true. He adorned, decorated, ornamented, embellished, was adorned, was decorated, was ornamented, was embellished. He adorned, decorated, ornamented, embellished, was adorned, was decorated, was ornamented, was embellished. And then if that continued on, it would show you derivative spellings of that word. So I have to ask myself, am I ornamenting myself in the way that would please Yah? Am I doing the things that He says to do? And am I following His truth? Proverbs 1:8 gives an example of this, and 9. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother, for they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. This is decoration, necklaces. So we have the same spelling, Kuf, Shin, Tet, is also defined to make true, correct, truth. He made true, verified, confirmed, was made true, was verified, was confirmed. And we have a derivative spelling. The same spelling, Kuf, Shin, Tet, is defined as to shoot, a bow. He shot an arrow. It could literally mean he shot an arrow from a bow. The same spelling is defined as truth. It's used in Proverbs 22, verse 21. To make straight, to adorn. So now we're going to look at that derivative spelling. The Kuf, Shin, Wa, Tet is defined as an adjective, adorned, decorated, ornamented, verified, confirmed. As a male noun, it's used as adornment, decoration. It's also used as shot, truth. And then if I keep going, they've added a yod at the end, and that's pertaining to ornament, pertaining to decoration. So you can see as we add yods and was, the spelling changes, but the definition stays about the same. Hosea 14:10 tells us, who is wise and who will understand these things? Who is understanding and will know them? For the ways of Yahweh are straight. The righteous will walk in them, and sinners will stumble over them. So here's another word, Kuf, Shin, Bet, page 597. Kuf, Shin, Bet. So again, we have this raised up, elevated pillar of cloud that appeared to the Israelites in the wilderness. The Shin, dispensing benefits for obedience, and Bet. Bet can be a container, a house, in, with. It can be the shape of your ear. So in the dictionary, it's defined as to incline one's ears, to listen, hearken. He inclined his ears, listened, hearkened. It's used in Isaiah 32, verse 3, and it gives you the spelling that's used in that verse. He inclined his ears, gave attention, listened, hearkened, he obeyed, he was listened to. And then again, we have derivative spellings. But look how complete that definition is. It's not just to listen, but it's also giving attention, that you would obey it. Amazing. Jeremiah 7:23 tells us, rather it was only this thing that I commanded them, saying, hearken to my voice, that I will be your God, and you will be my people, and you will go on the entire way that I command you, so that it will be well for you. Here in this verse, we're told it's for our benefit. So if you turn to page 599, we're going to look at Kuf, Shin, Shin. And here I have it in the Paleo. Kuf, again, that raised up, following closely behind the pillar of cloud during the day. And then Shin is repeated. And we're told in scripture when things are repeated to really pay attention. Like, this is emphasized, this is important. And I think the same rule applies to spelling. So when I see two letters repeated, it gives it maybe a little more importance. So here we have emphasize, dispensing benefits for obedience. And in the dictionary, it's defined as to gather, assemble, collected, gathered. It's used in Zephaniah 2 verse 1. They gathered themselves together. And then we have derivative spellings. And where do we see Yah's goodness other than in his Moedim when we are to gather? And what a joy it is when you do get to gather with others. Deuteronomy 12:28 tells us, safeguard and hearken to these words that I command you, in order that it will be well for you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the eyes of Yahweh. Psalm 67 verse 2 tells us that thy way may be known upon earth, thy saving health among all nations. So I was trying to find another verse that showed that doing Yah's ways are a benefit. It's for our good. It's for our health and our sanity. Eric Bissell talks about that quite a bit, like encouraging us that it's possible to do Yah's ways, that it's always worth it to follow his truth. So I came across this verse, and in the Paleo, it looks like this. And I'm just going to give a demonstration of how I use the Paleo and what's possible to see the meaning in these letters. So this first word, we have Lamed Dalet Ayin Tav. And I see that as beginning with the instructions, or entering in the door of the instructions, closely examining the covenant. We have Bet Aleph Resh Zadi, contained in the Creator's plan of righteousness, springing forth or resurrecting. Dalet Resh Kaf Kaf, the starting place of righteousness, delivered or offered to you with his outstretched hand. Bet Kaf Lamed, containing by his hand his instructions or offered to you. Gimel Wa Yod Mem, choosing to turn to his ways, or choosing to turn connected to, by his hand, the environment of perfect sustenance and growth. And then this last word, Yod Shin Wa Ayin Tav Kaf, offered to you by his hand, dispensing benefits for obedience, connected to your close examination of his instructions or covenant, and by his hand, like offered to you. So let's look at this last word again. And what I'm going to do is use the dictionary, but I'm going to drop off the last two letters of the suffix, which is Tav Kaf there. And I'm going to drop off the first letter as a prefix. So we're going to look at Shin Wa Ayin. Shin Wa Ayin. So in the Paleo, I see this as dispensing benefits for obedience, connected to close examination, close scrutiny, weigh and measure, compare, maybe a magnifying glass. The ayin looks very similar to an eyeball. So you're closely examining something. It could be a fruit with a seed in it. It could be a lamb inside of a pasture surrounded by a lovely fence so it's protected. There's many things that ayin can mean. So if you look at page 646 in the dictionary and go to the middle of the left column, this word is defined, Shin Wa Ayin, cry for help, to cry out for help, cry for help, to help, save, deliver. He cried for help, cry for help, and it's used in Psalms 5 verse 3. And often I'll look at the usage in the Bible from the dictionary, or you can do it the other way. look at the dictionary from a word you're studying in the Bible, in the scriptures. So it's very, very useful tool. Okay, so if I go back to that word and I use the prefix of the yod again, and then in the dictionary, the only suffix I could find for this word was the hey. And the hey is like to proclaim or broadcast, something like that. And I found it on page 265. It's in the middle of the right column. So we have yod, shin, wa, ayin, hey, and it's defined as help, salvation, victory, welfare, prosperity. On Blue Letter Bible, it shows me it's actually Yeshua. By saving help is Yeshua. That's Yah's salvation, his help and salvation offered to you. Amazing. I would not have found that treasure if I hadn't torn apart that word and looked in the dictionary and found that definition. So I hope that demonstrates how useful of a tool this dictionary is when you're studying Hebrew, when you're looking at scripture, and you're really closely examining, what did Yah say? What are his instructions and how do I follow them? So I hope that's helpful and encourages you to use this wonderful tool.